Hello dear all, in today's lesson we're going to talk about conflict management. But before talking about conflict management, we need to know what conflict is and what management is. So, what is conflict? This is a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one. Having an argument or disagreeing about one thing is okay, but when it lasts longer than needed, then it turns out to be a conflict. What is management? That's the process of dealing with or controlling things or people. So here we come for the conflict management. Conflict management is the practice of being able to identify and handle conflict sensibly, fairly, and efficiently. Here we have 5 different ways that really work for conflict management. They are accommodating, avoiding, collaborating, competing, and compromising. So they have some other names as well. We will not say that one is better than the other. For each specific situation, one can be better than the other. Each and every one of them has its own advantages and disadvantages, and we'll be talking about that. Okay, forcing, also known as competing, may be appropriate in certain situations when all other, less forceful methods don't work or are ineffective. When you need to stand up for your own rights, resist aggression or pressure. When a quick resolution is required and using force is justified, for example, in a life-threatening situation to stop aggression and so on, as a last resort to resolve a long-standing conflict. Like when you need to react fast and get the needed result, forcing or competing is known to be the best. Possible advantages may provide a quick resolution to a conflict, increases self-esteem, and draws respect when firm resistance or actions were in response to aggression or hostility. Negative sides may negatively affect your relationship with the opponent in the long run, may cause the opponent to react in the same way even if the opponent did not intend to be forceful originally, cannot take advantage of the strong sides of the other side's position. Taking this approach may require a lot of energy and can be exhausting to some individuals. Again, depends on personality, depends on situation. In some situations that might work, in some situations might not. All right, win-win or collaborating. It's also known as confronting the problem or problem solving. Collaboration involves an attempt to work with the other person to find a win-win solution to the problem at hand, the one that most satisfies the concerns of both parties. The win-win approach sees conflict resolution as an opportunity to come to a mutually beneficial result. It includes identifying your opponent's underlying concerns and finding an alternative which meets each party's concerns. It is known to be the best way because it makes everybody happy, like both parties are happy as a result, and you need to find the root of the conflict, like the main reason for that conflict, so that you can avoid future problems related to that conflict. Okay, here we have the cases in which it can be appropriate. First of all, when consensus and commitment of other parties is important in a collaborative environment, when addressing the interests of multiple stakeholders is required, when a high level of trust is present, when a long-term relationship is important, when you need to work through hard feelings, animosity, etc., and when you don't want to take full responsibility so that you can share the responsibility. But most importantly, it's about long-term relationship, so that you can save the relationship for the future projects too. Okay, negative sides of collaborating: leads to solving the actual problem, leads to a win-win outcome, reinforces mutual trust and respect. I hope I said advantages of collaborating, not disadvantages. All right, so positive sides of collaborating: leads to solving the actual problem, leads to a win-win outcome, reinforces mutual trust and respect, builds a foundation for effective collaboration in the future, shared responsibility of the outcome, you earn a reputation as a good negotiator, and for those involved, the outcome of the conflict resolution is less stressful. Negative sides, disadvantages of collaborating: requires a commitment from all parties to look for a mutually acceptable solution, may require more effort and more time than some other methods, a win-win solution may not be evident. Like some people may not see their own benefits, and it might take more time for sure if we compare with forcing, which gives immediate result. Okay, for the same reason, collaborating may not be practical when timing is crucial and a quick solution or fast response is required, as we said. Once one or more parties lose their trust in an opponent, the relationship falls back to other methods of conflict resolution. Therefore, all involved parties must continue collaborative efforts to maintain a collaborative relationship. Compromising is another way, and known as reconciling. Compromising looks for an expedient and mutually acceptable solution which partially satisfies both parties. Compromise may be appropriate when the goals are moderately important and not worth the use of more assertive or more involved approaches, such as forcing or collaborating, to reach temporary settlement on complex issues, to reach expedient solutions on important issues, as a first step when the involved parties do not know each other well or haven't yet developed a high level of mutual trust. Advantages of compromising. Faster issue resolution. Compromising may be more practical when time is a factor. Can provide a temporary solution while still looking for a win-win situation, like you can gain some time. Lowers the levels of tension and stress resulting from the conflict. And the negative sides of using compromising may result in a situation where both parties are not satisfied with the outcome, like a lose-lose situation, because in compromising, everybody should give up on something. I mean, both parties should give up on something. Does not contribute to building trust in the long run and may require close monitoring and close control to ensure the agreements are actually met. Withdrawing, it's also known as avoiding. This is when a person neither pursues their own concerns nor those of their opponent. He or she does not address the conflict but sidesteps, postpones, or simply withdraws. Examples of when withdrawing may be appropriate: when the issue is trivial, not that much important, and not worth the effort. When more important issues are pressing and you don't have time to deal with it. In situations where postponing the response is beneficial to you, for example, when it's not the right time or place to confront the issue, when you need time to think and collect information before you actually act. Example, if you are unprepared or taken by surprise. When you see no chance of getting your concerns met, or you would have to put forth unreasonable effort. When you would have to deal with hostility, when you are unable to handle the conflict. If you are too emotionally involved or others can handle it better than you. Okay, here we have the advantages of withdrawing. When the opponent is forcing or attempts aggression, you may choose to withdraw and postpone your response until you are in a more favorable circumstance for you to push back. Another way, withdrawing is a low-stress approach when the conflict is short. Gives the ability or time to focus on more important or more urgent issues instead, and gives you the time to better prepare and collect information before you act, as we said. Okay, here we have the negative sides of withdrawing. May lead to weakening or losing your position. Not acting may be interpreted as an agreement. Using, as I say, like silence is accepted as a yes, so they may consider it as a kind of agreement. Using withdrawing strategies without negatively affecting your own position requires certain skill and experience. When multiple parties are involved, withdrawing may negatively affect your relationship with the party that expects your action. Okay, the other way is soothing. It's also known as accommodating. Soothing is accommodating the concerns of other people first rather than prioritizing one's own concerns. Examples of when soothing may be appropriate: when it's important to provide a temporary relief from conflict or buy time until you are in a better position to respond or push back. When the issue is not as important to you as it is to the other person, when you accept that you are wrong, and when you have no choice, or when continued conflict would be detrimental for you. Okay, we have negative and positive sides of soothing. The risk of being abused is real. Example, the opponent may try to constantly take advantage of your tendency towards soothing or accommodating. Therefore, it's important to maintain the right balance, and this requires some skill. May negatively affect your confidence in your ability to respond to an aggressive opponent, makes it more difficult to transition to a win-win solution in the future. Some of your supporters may not like your soothing response and be turned off. In some cases, soothing will help to protect more important interests while giving up on some less important ones. It gives an opportunity to reassess the situation from a different angle, and as a rule, does not require much effort. Okay, here we have the summary of all. We have different names for different solutions. For example, as we said, forcing or directing, it gives you the immediate result. It's the advantage for you because it can, save time and give the result as soon as possible. So soothing and accommodating, it gives you the time, like you gain time for emotions to cool. The other one, compromising or reconciling, in this one we have both parties giving up on something, and it's not highly recommended because it sometimes leads to a lose-lose situation, like nobody wins, nobody gets anything, so both parties are unsatisfied. Okay, problem solving, collaboration, it's a win-win situation. Longer term relationship is safe. Actually, it seems to be the best solution. But again, as we said in the beginning, it depends on the conditions. In some circumstances, some ways can be considered better than the others. When you need a quick resolution, for sure you need to go for forcing. But when you need to gain some time, you can go for soothing. But if you want to solve the problem, to find the root, the main reason for that problem, and you want to save your relationship, of course, collaboration is going to be the best one. Okay, withdrawal, avoidance, or acceptance. Cost of resolution is higher than the conflict. Like when it's not worth of the time, the time you need to spend for solving that problem, or the energy you need to have for that problem, or some other resources that you need to give up on for solving that problem, may not be that much important. The problem may not be that much important for spending that much time or that much energy or the other resources. So then it's better to give up on the solution. Okay, how much is too much is the main question. Conflict is important, but we need to find the golden average. As we see here, we have too little and we have too much. And actually they are the same, like the amount is the same, but for some it's too little, for some it's too much. Okay, how much is too much? That will depend on the company size, that will depend on the organization, this and that, like many other factors. But if we have too little conflict in the workplace, it shows that the organization is stagnant, either disinterested or demoralized, like people have no reason. People simply don't care, like employees don't really care about the company that much. So then you have too little or no conflict at all. But when you have too much, it shows that there is no proper operation in the company, like it's dysfunctional. So you need to find that golden average. Again, conflict is important, it's necessary, but it must be managed, it must be solved. So there should be the golden average, not too little, not too much. Okay, we have three different views regarding conflict. First one is traditional view. In this view, conflict is bad and it must be eliminated by use of authority. Like authority figures, kind of managers, directors, and so on, they come and they solve the problem, like yes, yes, no, no, that's it. Interactionist view, conflict is desirable for high performance team and it must be encouraged. Like they believe if there is conflict, if you have two parties competing against each other, they are going to be more helpful for the company in general. So for a high performance team, it must be encouraged in interactionist view. But we support contemporary view, in which it says conflict is inevitable with its both pros and cons, and it must be managed. Like conflict will happen for sure. It has its own positive sides and negative sides. The thing you should do is to solve the conflict, to manage the conflict for the better. Okay, now we go for solutions. What kind of solutions do we have? The main problem, okay, when we talk about conflicts, actually in this presentation, we mainly focus on the workplace, but conflicts are actually everywhere. If you consider your family situation, if you consider your social surrounding, when you are in the street, in the workplace, at home, wherever you are, you might have conflicts. Okay, first solution is to be not person-focused, but problem-oriented. What does that mean? Let's think that you have your child, or you have your mom or dad, doesn't matter, depending on the age. Most probably you have your child. Okay, and your child keeps lying. When you go and tell your child that you are such a bad child and you keep lying all the time, blah, 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 that means you are person-focused. You consider that child to be bad. And it blocks the child. So he turns out to be protective, and he doesn't even listen to you. He doesn't even want to solve the problem. He thinks that he is bad because you said that he was bad, and so on. So, but we have a different approach. We don't say that you are bad. We say you are a good child because he really is a good child. But lying as a feature is not good. So good children don't lie. Like in total, you are good, but this feature is bad. The same approach must be there for employees, must be there for, I don't know, for the other people, everywhere, all the time. So you should criticize the feature, not the person in total, because person in total cannot be bad or good. So the problem, there is a problem there for that conflict, and you need to focus on that problem itself. For example, your student is always late. If you say that you are such a bad student because you're late all the time, it's wrong. So you are person-focused. So there should be nothing personal. So you should say, the right approach is that you are a good student, but being late all the time is not acceptable. So the problem is being late. So you need to focus on this matter and solve it. Okay, so we are going to be problem-oriented, as we see, and not for person-focused. All right, relative rationality. What does that mean? It will be a little bit shocking for some, because people usually agree about rationality. They think rationality is about facts, but in actual reality, it's not so. Rationality is relative. What do we mean? The thing that's rational for you may not be rational for somebody else. Not always, but in some occasions, for sure. What does rationality depend on? Different factors, such as culture, experience, and frequency. What do we mean by frequency? How often that thing happens to that person. For example, if one person keeps lying when he's afraid, and you observe it, for you, this situation might be okay. You can consider lying because of fear to be okay. But for a person who has never experienced, who has never seen this, or might have seen for a couple of times, it's not a rational explanation for lying. Like fear cannot be a rational explanation for lying. There should be some other reasons for that person. Okay, so as we see, rationality depends on culture, depends on experience and frequency. Culture, like you can say in one country, for example, in Japan, one thing might be okay, but in Canada, it may not be okay. Or in Turkish community, it's okay, but in Russian community, it's not okay. So it's not rational. That's why we have culture shock, actually. Okay, so how to solve the problem then? Empathy will work here. So when you have the empathy, when you try to understand what the other party, the other person actually feels, what he actually thinks, what is his emotional condition, what is his, what is the real circumstance, and what is his ulterior motive, what pushes him to behave that way. So then you can solve the problem, actually. So when you go for the root cause of that conflict, you understand why this person behaves that way, you solve the problem once and forever. It might reveal management failure, as we have mentioned here, to be fixed to avoid a later conflict. Like once you solve the problem once and forever, later you are not going to face the same conflict or side effects of the same conflict. Sorry. Okay, here we have brain components for conflict management. Here we have left side and the right side, as we see in the list for both. Left side will go for time, money, product or service quality, energy, and so on. Right side will go for feelings, pride, trust, etc. We will go for the mixed approach using both. Okay, practical reality. For a win-win solution for a conflict, below given points are needed, as now we're going to mention, as we have written here, must be non-harming, which means both parties should benefit and there should be no harm for any of the parties. There should be trust, honesty, respect, non-attachment, we'll talk about non-attachment, and optimal resolutions. With a lack of one or more of the above mentioned, probability of win-win solutions is low. Attachment is the capacity to form and maintain healthy emotional relationships. It can bring positive or negative stress. Okay, uncharacteristic silence. Again, uncharacteristic silence can be the sign of stress. If you have the employee who always talks, negotiates, who always reveals the problems and tries to find a solution for those problems, suddenly keeps silent, doesn't talk about the problem at all, this is uncharacteristic silence, and this is the sign of stress, and this is actually negative. It means either the employee is not trying to solve the problem, and there can be several reasons. Simply, he may not be interested in the solution because he doesn't believe in fair environment or fair resolution, or he simply doesn't care about it. All right, or there can be some other reasons as well, depending on the situation for sure. Okay, attachments can be constructive and destructive. Constructive will, of course, bring positive outcomes, and destructive will give negative ones. Short-term and long-term resolutions. Relationship for long-term solutions is important not to have the conflict repeated in the future. So if you focus on long-term solutions, it means you save the relationship, and in the future you can go for some other projects and so on. Okay, reasons for the conflict can be intra, within, and inter, between. Here we have some possible reasons for the conflict: misunderstanding, poor communication, lack of planning, poor staff selection, frustration, stress, and many more. I want to point out one important thing here. During the hiring procedure, when HR managers choose the people to work with, they focus on, usually they focus on, or just managers in some companies, they usually focus on people they like or they can work with. But the problem is you usually have teams in the workplace. So harmony within the team is more important than the relationship between the manager and the employee. Because the manager may not spend that much time with that employee, but within the team they're always together. Like within the team there must be the harmony so that they can cooperate, they can work together. Otherwise, of course, there will be thousands of conflicts in the workplace. So main focus should be on the team, not the manager and employee relationship. Okay, ways to avoid conflict in the workplace. First of all, you need to know the reasons and then solve these problems. Okay, first of all, you need to increase resources. Most of conflicts happen because of sharing resources, and that is actually one kind of dependence. When you decrease interdependence between groups, you decrease the level of conflict in the workplace as well. Because when people are independent, they can make their independent decisions. There's no dependency between groups, or when the dependency is minimum, then the level of conflict is minimum as well. So the other way is to increase interaction. You can organize some activities for the employees to interact, to socialize, to get together, to know values, priorities better, to know who is who likes what, and so on. And two main features. First of all, establishing formal procedures for everything. When you have formal procedures for rewarding, for punishment, for everything, then everybody knows which steps are ahead, what is going to happen, and most importantly, rewarding fairly. Most of the conflicts happen because of unfair rewarding system. I will talk about the social experiment. I guess most of the people know about it because it's super famous. I don't remember the name of this experiment. I forgot it. So there are two monkeys. For the first 2-3 occasions, they ask the monkeys to give the stones, and they give grapes for each stone the monkey brings. So for the first monkey, they keep giving grapes after several trials. And for the second monkey, they start giving cucumber instead of the grape. And the second monkey, can see that the first monkey gives the stone, receives the grape. But the second monkey, he himself, gives the stone, receives the cucumber. He protests. First, he checks the stone to be sure that everything is okay with that stone. Once he becomes sure, he sees that there is something wrong, and he gives the cucumber back. This is like, I don't want. Like, he uses his body language to express this. And the second time, they do the same. They give grape for the first monkey and cucumber for the second. He gives cucumber back. And he sees that they still give grapes to the first monkey, but cucumber to him. He stops giving stones. This is the same thing that happens in the workplace. Like, even monkeys react, people do as well. So when one employee sees unfair rewarding system, like when they see that they both do the same job, but one person gets either higher salary or better treatment or this and that, then they feel demotivated simply, and even if they can work better, they stop working because of this unfair rewarding system. So that is the key issue in solving conflicts and avoiding. Okay, here we have golden rule in conflict management. Prevention is better than cure for conflict management. It's better not to have the conflict than have it and solve it, for sure. When you have no space for the conflict to happen, when you handle everything perfectly well, then there's no way, there's no reason to worry. Okay, here we have the books, some of the books that you may actually like reading about conflict management. That's it for today. Wish you good luck and see you in the other videos.